Burnstow is a small seaside town. It is a busy town in summer, but it is a quiet place for the rest of the year. In spring and autumn, only a few people go there. They go to Burnstow to play golf. Professor Parkins went to Burnstow in the spring of 1902. He stayed in the small inn called Globe. The Globe Inn was very near the sea. There was only 2 rooms for guests in the inn. The guests were in, so the professor had to stay in the other. The landlord took the professor upstairs to the room. The landlord unlocked the door and showed the professor the room. "This is a room, sir," he said. "There are 2 beds. Both of them were comfortable. You can choose the bed you want. There's a good view of the sea from the window." Professor Perkins looked out of the window. The beach was only 100 yards away. The sea looked great and cold. Then the professor noticed the window's curtains on the window. "Landlord," he said, "there's no curtain on the window." "I'm very sorry, sir," said the landlord. "I'm telling the servant to put them up." That afternoon, Professor Parkins met the other guest. His name was Colin Gibson. They started to play golf together. The 2 men walked along the road to the golf course. They talked about their lives and their work. Colonel Gibson, an army officer in India. He's lived in India for many years. "I'm an archaeologist," said the Professor Parkins. "I study history by digging up old buildings." "And there are only old buildings here in Burnstow?" asked the colonel. "I believe there was an old church near the golf course," said the professor. "Let's pull down the full 14th century. "Why?" asked Colonel. "It's unusual to pull down a church, isn't it?" "Yes," said the professor. "I don't know what I pulled down. That's why I want to look for it. I want to find the place where the church stood." They played golf for most of the afternoon. "Shall we go back to the inn for a drink before supper?" the Count asked. "I will see it in half an hour," the professor said. "First, I will to look for the old church." "Don't be late," said the colonel. "They will be dark soon." The colonel walked along the road toward the inn. The professor walked toward the beach. He looked at the ground carefully. There was many large grey stones near the beach. The stones was covered with glasses, with plates in the shape of the circle. The professor touched a stone with his foot. The stone moved. There was a hole underneath the stone. Professor Parkins looked into the hole. It was dark in the hole, and could not see anything, so he lit a match. The wind blew the match out. He put his hand in the hole. The hole was empty. No, he was wrong. His finger touched something made of metal. He pulled out of the hole. It was a piece of metal about 4 inches long. It was old and dirty. It put in his pocket. The wind from the sea was cold and the sky was cloudy. It was getting dark. Professor Parkins decided to walk back to the inn. It was a short walk along the beach to the inn, but there were high breakwater on the beach. But the professor climbed over each breakwater slowly. It was hard work. He stopped to rest. He looked back and saw someone about 100 yards behind him. The other person stopped. It's getting dark, so the professor could not see clearly. He could not see what the other person looked like. A black figure for a bit was watching him. Was it a man or a woman? Or was something else? The professor suddenly felt afraid. He did not want to meet his strange figure on the dark beach. He thought that the figure would follow him. He started to run, but the sand was soft and deep, and the breakwater were high. He felt he was rolling in a dream. At last, he reached the inn. He looked around. There was no one behind him in the dark beach. He was cold and tired, very glad to go into the warm inn. The colonel was waiting for him. They ate supper together and talked about golf. Then the professor went upstairs to his room. He took it and remembered the piece of metal in his pocket. He took it out and looked at it by candlelight. It was a very old whistle. He tried to blow the whistle. No noise came out. The whistle was full of dirt. The professor took out a small pocket knife. He went to the window to clean the dirt out of the whistle. He saw that there was still no curtain on the window. He opened the window and looked out. The night was dark. It was no moon, but the professor thought there was someone standing on the beach. He cleaned the whistle quickly and went back to the candle. Now he could see marks on the whistle. The mark was letters. Which is its crude event? Latin, the professor thought. Which is its event? That means, who is this who is coming? The professor tried to blow the whistle. No one will come, he thought. But he put the whistle to the lip and blew. The sound of the whistle was clear and high. It was a sad sound. Suddenly, the wind blew strongly through the open window. The candle went out. The professor was surprised and frightened. He stood in the dark, listening to the wind. He walked slowly across the room. He closed the window. Still, the wind blew. It blew around the inn, making a terrible noise. The professor relit. The professor lit the candle with a match. He felt tired and cold. He put the whistle on the table and undressed. Then he got into bed and blew out the candle. When he closed his eyes, his dream was on the beach. He saw the high breakwaters. It was dark, but he saw everything clearly. He saw someone running. Every few seconds, the man looked behind him. The men were frightened and tired. He climbed over each breakwater more slowly. Finally, he fell on the sand and lay still. He has looked at terror on his face. Behind the man, someone or something was moving very quickly. He came nearer and nearer. There were strange black figure. It came closer and closer to the man who lay on the beach. He stopped, and then he jumped straight toward the man. Professor Parkins opened his eyes. He was too afraid to see what happened next. Every time he was closed his eyes, he had the same dream. At last, he reached for his matches and lit the candle. Something moved on the floor under his bed. He thought it was a mouse. The professor was not able to sleep again. When morning came, he went out downstairs for the breakfast. "You don't look well," the colonel said. "Again golf would make you better?" "Yes," said the professor. "I need some fresh air." After breakfast, the professor went upstairs to get his fluff hat. The servant would clean his room. "Good morning, sir," the girl said. "It was cold and windy last night. Would you like another blanket for your bed?" "Yes, please," said the professor. "Which bed shall I put it on, sir?" asked the girl. "The one I slept in," said the professor. "But you slept in both beds, sir," said the girl. "I put clean sheet on both beds." "Did I?" said the professor. Put blankets on the beds in the corner." As soon as Colonel Gold finished, the professor left the room. He locked the door and put the key in his pocket. He met the colonel downstairs. They walked along the road on the golf course. "And very windy last night," said the colonel. "When there was bad storm in India, we said someone whistle for the wind." "Well," said the professor slowly, "I blew a whistle last night, and the wind came soon afterwards." "Oh, very strange," said the colonel. "Tell me, what kind of whistle was it?" The professor told the colonel about the whistle. He told him how he has found it. He told him that he has cleaned it and not blow it. He did not tell him that he stayed away all night. The colonel listened to the story but said nothing. They played golf until late in the afternoon. They walked back along the road to the inn. The professor did not want to walk back along the beach. It was very near the inn. Then a boy came running towards them. He ran straight in the canoe and fell over. "What's the matter?" the colonel asked angrily. "Look where you are going." The boy was very frightened. The colonel spoke to him again. "Who are you running away from?" "The thing in the window," the boy answered. He was crying. "What thing?" the colonel asked. "Come and show us." The boy looked to them in front of the Globe Inn. He pointed up to the window. "It was up there, sir," he said. "It was waving at me. It was a horrible thing, sir. I don't think it was alive." Don't be afraid," Colin said. "It was someone trying to frighten you. Go home and forget about it." The colonel looked at the professor. That is the window of your room, isn't it?" he asked. "Yes," said the professor. "There is something strange going on. Will you come upstairs with me?" The two men upstairs together. The professor's room was locked. He opened the door with his key. Inside the room, one of the beds was untidy. A seat lay on the floor by the window. The professor called the servant. "Who has been in my room?" asked the professor. "No one, sir," the servant replied. "There was only 2 keys in this room. You have one and landlord have the other." The professor went to find landlord. "I did go into the room while you were, sir," said the landlord. The professor and Cole eat supper together. I can't understand it," said the professor. "How could someone lock into a room?" "Show me the whistle you told me about," said the Cole. The professor showed it to him. "What will you do with it?" asked Cole. "I shall put it in the museum," said the professor. "Throw it into the sea," said the Cole. "I'm going to bed. Call me if you need me in the night." Professor Parkin went his room. The night was clear and moon was full. Bright moonlight shone through the window. There was still no current. The professor was hungry. The moonlight would shine through the window and keep me awake, he thought. He decided to hang a seat over the window. He took a seat from the empty bed and hung it on the curtain rail. Then he got into a bed and went to sleep. He didn't sleep for long. Bright moonlight woke him up. The sheet was no longer over the window. A noise came from the empty bed. The professor looked across the room. Suddenly, a figure sat up on the other bed. The professor was so surprised that he jumped out of his own bed. He stood by the window. There was moonlight. He could not see the figure on the other bed clearly. It was covered by the sheet. The figure stood up. It stood between the professor and the door. His arm was spread out. It was searching for the professor with the fingers. The finger jumped on the professor's empty bed. It moved slowly over the pillow. Professor Sears then got a bed and moved toward the window. In the bright moonlight, the professor could see its face under the sheet. It was very old and very horrible. The professor opened the window and shouted for help. The figure under the sheet jumped forward. Its hand went over the professor's mouth. The professor tried to get away. It was about to fall out the window when a hand pulled him back. It was the colonel. There was no one else in the room. A sheet from the bed lay on the floor by the window. Next morning, the colonel and professor went down to the beach. The colonel took the train whistle and threw it into the sea. Things like sometimes happen in India, the colonel said. I don't think the figure can hurt you, but it can only frighten you. Professor Carton is still afraid of a curtain that moves in the wind. I want to sleep without a sheet on his bed. Over.